Is being a woman field biologist any more difficult than being a woman CEO, a woman fighter pilot, or a cop? Being a woman in any field can be difficult, but field biology comes with its own challenges. Remote locations are not conducive to family life. Odd hours and long days in the field where a proper toilet, let alone a bed, is a luxury. But there are also arresting landscapes, charismatic wildlife, and exploration of the unknown and potential discoveries and breakthroughs. It is these that energize and sustain the women field biologists profiled in the anthology Women in the Wild. The people you will meet in these pages are here because they have either had a substantial impact on species landscape conservation or because their work has contributed to the resolution of environmental challenges confronting wildlife in India.
So as a researcher who has always been interested in past people from the past, events from the past, especially from the Chota Nagpur Plateau, because this is where I've grown up. One name that I would constantly come across while researching for various conservation related or wildlife related or natural history writings was that of Jamal Ara. I read about an article in Telegraph about Madhuka Singh, and she, in that entire interview, which was mostly about her career as a basketball coach, as an educator, she had once, at one point, she just mentioned that her mother was a bird lover named Jamal Ara. As I read more about her career, as I interviewed Madhuka ma'am, um, I, I got to know of a lady that was one of the most remarkable people that I have ever known. Even and it's strange because I never met her. She passed away in 1995, but there is this sense of this sense of overwhelming awe that you feel when you read about all that she has done. But more than reading her work, or in addition to reading her work, when you learn of the struggles that she went through in her own personal life and how she had to navigate a field which was a bastion of men at that point of time, conservation as a whole, but especially ornithology, and any sort of field work involving forest and wildlife. And so that really, and the kind of work she was doing, not just on in the field of conservation and ornithology, her contributions, as you would find, that she continues to be the only not just woman but the only researcher who has written about the birds of Chota Nagpur or the fauna of Chota Nagpur the way she has. Many of her studies that she did 50 years ago, 60 years ago, they continue to be the only studies for those regions across Jharkhand even today. Um, so her work is incredible. And then I got to know that she was also a translator, she was a short story writer, she was so many things.
Ami was a very strict parent, very, very strict. We had to stick to the timings of when to go to sleep, when to rise up, when to do my studies and my homework. And it paid dividends because I used to do fairly well in class. And she was a very private person, very private. She didn't like to share her life with others, but she had a few friends, and most of them were from the forest department only, the families. And how shall I put it now? She used to get very excited when she had to go on one of these trips into the forest. I remember we had to go somewhere in Singhbhum, and I must tell you, she used to wear green trousers and a green shirt. And at that time, for a married lady, a mother, to wear that was out of the question. And her binoculars on her shoulder, that is the way you would see her walking into the forest. She faced a lot of challenges, lots of challenges, because at that time, people were not so open minded. And coming from a Muslim family, it was all the more difficult. Yeah, she faced a lot of challenges, definitely.
So I got to know Viji quite well. I met her soon after I moved to Chennai in 1974 when we were at the Snake Park. And she came in to join us as a volunteer 2 or 3 years after that. So we were age-wise about 5 years apart. And one could sense immediately that there was a difference about her, difference from the other people working with us, the other volunteers. And I think the key word there is her passion. She was absolutely passionate about animals and about conservation and field work. Quite often it's one or the other, but here was a person who loved individual animals, the cats and dogs and squirrels and monkeys living around her house, as well as she had this very balanced, rational, scientific approach and was an excellent field worker. And of course, she's best known for the rediscovery of the cane turtle in Kerala. And I was lucky enough to go and stay with her in her cave abode in Chalakudi for a few days, and it was pretty challenging because there were elephants around, there were leeches everywhere, there were scorpions, but that didn't deter her. She loved it. She loved that place. Much preferred being there than in Chennai.
Usha Lachampa's story pulled me to a different world. In this age of high-tech gadgets and technology like GPS, her own world naturally skills and fervent zeal is a valuable lesson in humility, commitment, and patience. I was excited to meet a naturalist who has a native grass species named after her. Tracing Usha's incredible life was not an easy task. I had to glide over her life through long, unending conversations and realize how incredibly rich it was. I was touched by her unabashed love for the ecologically fragile and strategically located Sikkim Himalayas. She had managed to reach those areas in Sikkim that even the Britishers had not. I found one incident particularly intriguing. It so happened that once she took a dangerous trek through high altitude passes and icy rivulets when she was expecting her second child. And she did not disclose the fact that she was pregnant to her team as she did not want to miss the opportunity. I found this really intriguing as a working mother myself. Usha has always been a learner, be it in the classroom or in the jungles. Her journey from the portals of Bombay Natural History Society to the unexplored terrains of Sikkim is worth documenting.
So, over the years, her work has given incredible insights to India's wildlife and demystified a lot of things, especially for the urban populace like us, where we think wildlife is always in national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. So her work has shown that wildlife lives alongside with us very much, especially in the rural areas, and not just small mammals and bird life, but large carnivores like leopards and hyenas and wolves. Over the years, we've corresponded a lot. I've written about her work. I've been uh, very lucky to be with her in the field in Himachal Pradesh, and I've seen her tracking a leopard real time on foot, which also was an incredible experience for me. And more of she has shown the kind of tolerance our society has for wildlife, knowingly or unknowingly. And I leave with another photo which remains in my memory, she's showing me a photo of a farmer somewhere in Nasik or in Maharashtra, in one of the sugarcane belts where she has tracked leopards. A farmer taking a selfie with a leopard which is sitting behind at a little distance at a higher parapet kind of thing.
Nandini's work is at the confluence of wild landscapes and the communities that live in and around these landscapes, both human and non human. So, people, communities, conservation. These are some of the themes that frame Nandini's work, whether that work is research, nature education, or setting up a nature interpretation center like the one she set up at the Paki Tiger Reserve in Arunachal Pradesh. A lot of people I spoke to when I wrote that essay spoke about Nandini's ability to form deep friendships and the genuine empathy that she has for people. They also spoke about how she would go out on a leg for people who needed her support and help. And I think it is this empathy and this ability to form deep relationships that have molded her success, or be it in her research, or be it in the kind of leadership that she showed during the Save Molam campaign.
The story that I tell is that of Ghazala Shahabuddin, who was once a wide-eyed young girl looking at birds in a park in Delhi, wondering which bird it was, often getting the bird names right because she had read the Book of Indian Birds by Salim Ali. Firstly, this is a story about a woman finding her voice in a patriarchal society. Secondly, this is a story about finding your passion but also sticking with it, staying with it, fighting for it, not letting go. It's not easy to be a wildlife scientist in India, and trust me, it wasn't easy back then when she started out. And answers in conservation don't come easy. I mean, if answers in conservation came easily, our job would be really simple, but unfortunately, job is really complex and complicated as well. The third thing I want to emphasize is this is also a chapter about her love for the oak forests of Himalayas, which might be almost as endangered as, say, the cloud forests of the Amazon or any other severely endangered ecosystem you hear about. And this is a forest type that is in a particular elevation of the Himalayas. It's rich, complex forest, in a way, reflecting the rich, complex problems that face conservation. It's a forest that people like to use. It's a forest birds like to use. And finally, it's a forest that Ghazala lost herself in, but also found herself in. How she went about forming her research questions, how she went about answering those research questions, and the sheer joy she feels looking at a rufous-bellied woodpecker, which is found in these forests, or identifying a bird by just its call, or walking through the monsoon drizzle in a forest full of mosses and lichen and many other kinds of flora. This is also a story about love, sheer love for a subject, and not letting the world take away that love that she felt so ardently. I hope some of that love shines through in these pages.
What does a rainforest or a grassland or a coast or an ocean want from a researcher? From a human being? Is allowing it to thrive, to survive, the only thing we can do? Or can humans also nurture these ecosystems as they observe and study them? These are constant questions that Divya Muddappa, a restoration ecology researcher and conservation biologist, asks. Through her research, she wants to improve the scientific understanding of the patterns and processes in tropical ecosystems and use this knowledge to implement in conservation programs that can benefit both wildlife and local communities. For the last 25 years, she's been doing research and conservation in Valparai, a town in Tamil Nadu which has tea estates and is surrounded by tropical rainforests, making it a unique landscape where human encounters with wild animals like elephants, leopards, and gores is a way of life. And what fascinated me the most about Divya's journey was her deep commitment as a researcher to this landscape. She has been in Valparai since 1996. For Divya, she's convinced that once that you have delved deeper into an ecosystem, understood its cultural and historical context, can you really conserve it effectively and see real impact? Divya's journey in Valparai, both as a researcher and a conservationist, has been tremendously challenging and tiring. But there is also a lot of joy and learning.
Dr. Uma Ramakrishnan is a scientist, a mother, a mentor, a biologist, a wife, a teacher, a daughter, an explorer. And she's fiercely passionate about India and her wilds. Uma gave up opportunities for a lucrative career against all sage advice in the US to come back to India and carve a path for herself as a molecular biologist. Uma is a wildlife detective. Yes, you heard me right, a wildlife detective. And she has a special, if commonplace tool to resolve the mysteries of nature, particularly of large charismatic species like elephants and tigers. Incidentally, and not insignificantly, Uma is using her skills to understand zoonotic diseases like the deadly coronavirus to detect spillover events early and perhaps even prevent them.
I first heard of in-season fish when they launched their website, a brilliantly simple website that tells you what fish one can safely eat, keeping in mind that there are breeding seasons for the different species of fish that are found off the Indian coast. In-season fish is also the perfect example to understand the two themes that underlie a lot of Divya's work, which is the sea and the land. Conservation of marine wildlife, which is her focus, is really linked to the livelihoods of communities that depend on the marine ecosystem, in which case it's mainly the fisherfolk. And this is a key theme that runs through all of Divya's work. Her work is also extremely important because it spotlights a really mega issue, which is the fact that marine wildlife populations are fast depleting off the Indian shores the way they are all over the world. And in a sense, this is linked to the diversity, or rather the lack of diversity in the fish baskets that we as people consume. So again, it sort of comes back to people. And I think Divya's big effort has been in bringing more people, be they chefs, consumers of fish, restaurants, conservationists, policymakers, into a larger debate on how we can build a sustainable future where marine wildlife can thrive.
I recently had the honor of authoring a chapter for the exciting new anthology, Women in the Wild. This gave me a great opportunity to connect with 4 intrepid, young, brilliant women field biologists and write about their inspiring work. In my chapter titled Breaking New Ground, you will meet Dr. Pooja Choksi, Dhanusha Kavalkar, Tiasa Adhya, and Ayushi Jain, all of whom are charting unusual paths and breaking new ground. Let me tell you a bit about them to tickle your interest. Researcher Dhanusha Kavalkar is among India's leading speleologists who studies cave and karst systems and the different cave-dwelling species with the aim of conserving these unique and threatened ecosystems. Dr. Pooja Choksi is a gifted ecologist who is listening to natural sounds using acoustic tools to assess the impact of ecological restoration interventions in central India. Ayushi Jain is a conservation biologist whose inspiring research and conservation efforts have helped the rare and endangered Cantor's giant soft-shell turtle get a new lease on life in Kerala. The inimitable Tiasa Adhya is a well-known fishing cat researcher and conservationist. She's working tirelessly to protect the vulnerable fishing cat and its equally vulnerable wetland habitat in India by way of rallying communities to champion the cause of fishing cat conservation.
Field by field, ridge by ridge, from the forest to the shore, the glass ceiling is feeling the pressure. As more women take leadership positions in wildlife biology, there is optimism that change will come.